Hello, my friends. On this episode, I'm speaking with Mark Fisher, and in this episode, he shares his most painful lesson from 2023. And I'm not going to spoil it for you. I'll let him describe what it is. You got to listen to it. But I'll give you a hint. There's a lot of tips in here for you about how to manage your time more effectively. So if you suck at managing your time, this is a great episode for you. Keep on listening, my friends. Hello, fitness business nerds. What's up? Welcome to another episode of the Business for Unicorns podcast. I'm stoked today to be here with Mr. Mark Fisher because today is all about the most painful experience you had in 2023, Fisher.
It's about my
And I
pain.
love talking about your pain.
We all do. Everyone does. Pain equals
But
ratings.
before we get into your therapy session here today, we have a exciting, also maybe like never before done thing coming up where
Yeah.
we're actually selling for the first time and making available to all of you a course that historically has only been really available, at least the last bunch of years, to Unicorn Society members, and it's about time management. It's a course that is essentially excuse me, coughing. I'll let you describe it. So, what's this course? It's time management for gym owners. So, what's
Yeah.
that involve?
Well, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a very well named course, if you ask me. But basically, it is a course that is soup to nuts how to manage your day, how to get more done in less time with less stress and still get better results through effectively mastering the best practices of time management. And importantly, it's all done through the lens of a gym owner. So, although a lot of the principles are broadly applicable, if you happen to be a carpenter or a refrigerator repair man listening to our gym owner podcast, you might actually find benefit too, but it is very specifically designed for the specific challenges, the requirements, the schedule needs of a gym owner. So if you are feeling overwhelmed all the time, if you're finding you're never getting to the end of your to-do list, if you find you're not exactly sure how to prioritize things and you feel frustrated at the end of your day, what you want is to have a system that creates games you can win. And this has been one of the most well-reviewed courses we have in our arsenal. To Keter's point, we've actually never released the videos before. So for limited time only, by February 9th, you can get lifetime access for 50% off. So if you're interested in finding out more and snagging access, go ahead, click the link in the show notes. But remember, the price goes up after February 9th. So do it soon.
Yeah, I just want to underline that, we've been doing a version of this course for many years, and it's the one that consistently gets some of the best reviews and outcomes for people who take it. So if you know you suck at organizing your time and you're always spending time on the things that don't fucking matter, please do yourself a favor. Take this course. Click the link down below. Get it before February 9th for 50% off. You'll be so glad you did. All right, well, let's dive in. Let's talk more about kind of time management because you had a real painful lesson in 2023 that was really about how you were spending your time. Before we get into the pain, one more delay is we've been talking a lot about personal management, self-care, time management, personal productivity for many years. This has been like a topic that you and I have both been, deep students of for a long time. Can you just say a little bit about like where your passion about this topic comes from?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it seems that this is the most foundational question, which is how are you using your time, right? So I think anybody
Yeah.
that has a passing awareness of the finitude of the human experience knows you're not here long. It's going to be a lot shorter than you want. It goes faster than you could think. So to me, being intentional about how we're using the time, I think is super important. If anything, it's been interesting too, as somebody that reads lots of time management books. I got to say, Oliver Berkman, I think is his name, a writer, wrote a book called
Mm.
4,000 Weeks, which I think is a very important contribution to the topic of time management. And I do think is a total straw man because this is somebody that used to write about time management. The thing I think is sometimes not helpful is, on the one hand, time management correctly should be criticized if it's really just about squeezing you into the output capitalist meat grinder, and you're really only doing things because you're trying to make more of whatever your widgets are per day. I think
Yeah.
we should all criticize that. I think that's appropriate, but I think good time management definitionally is not about that. It's certainly not the way that we think about it, which is you start with your values, you start with your mission, you start with how you want to live your life, and then you do so intentionally. So this is not necessarily about, I'm going to keep working 50 hours per week, but now I'm going to get, X percentage more work done. It might be I'm going to actually work 35 hours per week and still get a little bit more done because I'm being so efficient, so effective. And then I'm going to take that extra time, that delta, and I'm going to hang out with my kids, or I'm going to go on vacation, or I'm going to read a book, or I'm going to do something that's nourishing and enriching. And I know a topic that you hammer all the time, the types of things also, frankly, as leaders, you really have to do if you want to show up
Hmm.
at your very, very best, because your behavior is always leaking contagious. So strangely, I think this is an argument for time management as a foundational thing that a leader needs to have their arms around, because if you are stressed out all the time because you're disorganized, you feel like you're not making any progress, you are constantly dropping balls, that's not going to have you in good stead to your clients or your team, or frankly, for that matter, your clients, or frankly, for that matter, your family.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I think it's really well said. And I think there's like a really powerful analogy here that, that time management is a kind of a life skill that when you do create really good habits over time, it has all of these trickle down effects on your life, personally and professionally. And the analogy of that to fitness is, to your, physical well-being is very similar. The way we talk about fitness is like you want to create habits that when you find the sweet spot for you of the right actions, behaviors at the right time, the right pulse consistently, it's all these tremendous trickle down effects. So it really is kind of a foundational kind of routine to find in your life that when you find it, so much becomes kind of unlocked, so to speak. And so let's talk about what happened to you in 2023. So I don't know, I'll just tee it up with this. What happened to you in 2023, Fisher?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd be curious, like, what do you think happened to me? You were there. Um, yeah, I mean, my sense on the inside, though I'd be certainly curious to hear, your perspective on the outside. But yeah, I just kind of hit my wall. I just, for really, honestly, one of the real first times in my life and career, maybe, I got to the point where I just couldn't outwork what was on my plate, because
Hmm.
I, for better and often for worse, can just go into this over functioning mode where I'll just go in hyperdrive and I'll just get up earlier, I'll work later, I'll work on the weekends, and I will go very, very fast. Right now, something that has really overall worked for me, though it is a strength that can be taken to its extreme and then become a weakness, is I do think I have an unusual ability to go very fast and get a lot of work done and have it all be like pretty good. And I'm not somebody that never, ever, ever drops the details, but overall, I can do like a ton of pretty good work at a very unusual pace. And that has worked very well for me and create a lot of opportunities. However, there's still only so many hours in the day. So this fall,
Hmm.
just to set the scene, I had moved back to New York City part time. My wife and I were figuring, well, what do we do with this house upstate that we love, but also we kind of have to manage? My wife is back working full time in a Broadway show for the first time since the pandemic. And for those that don't know, for you non-Broadway fans, it's very gnarly to be in a Broadway show. So she's working, 6 days a week. The show is in rehearsals, and then the show is opening, and she's doing the press junket. Our daughter, who we love and adore, is now really popping, right? She's like 15 months now, some both demanding in ways that are like awesome, but also very challenging.
Hmm.
We're navigating childcare in the city. And not only that, but all those things in themselves would be, I think, a little bit of a thing to navigate, even if I only had one job. But I kind of had three jobs for a while, right? Which was trying
Yep.
to help, and yeah, help is the good word. I don't know, I was doing an amazing job of it, but doing my best to continue to lead MFF and support the leadership team there, doing my best to support, a lot of opened up a franchise with my partner Greg, and we were opening up our first location. And of course, when you open up any location, the first of anything, there are going to be some things that balls don't bounce the way you want. So that also wound
Hmm.
up taking out a little bit more time than anticipated. And then the really wonderful challenge, or which I blame you, listener, is Business for
Yep.
Unicorns suddenly started really getting some very intense headwinds, and we really want to leverage those opportunities. So all of that to say, in brief, I was just it was everything everywhere all at once, right? Like I remember at Burning
Yeah.
Man, there was this funny moment. So Burning Man story, not a long Burning Man story, but there definitely were like a couple times at the burn this year, in August of this year, where I literally found myself in tears. I'm looking around at Burning Man, I'm like, I have everything. I have everything. I've got the
Hmm.
career, I've got the Hudson Valley house, I've got the apartment, I got the wife, I got the baby, I've got the 40 something guy with abs. Let's go. And unfortunately, I have everything and I have it all at once. And
Yeah.
that has been amazing. And it has forced me to take some of my own medicine, because the thing that I now, and I've always known this to be true, but the thing was so clear to me is I had a real capacity limitation that I frankly just almost never ran into. That wasn't to say that I never
Mhm.
had periods where I didn't get kind of burnt out, or I didn't have periods where I was working ridiculously silly hours, but particularly before you have a kid, particularly when it was really only one business and not having the cognitive lag of like toggling back and forth between three different ventures, it was a really difficult time to sort of really explore my own limits. Now, I'll say this: the things that, as we move maybe towards both some of the things I did as well as something that you might want to consider if and when you found yourself in the same place. The first thing I got to say that I think was helpful was acknowledging it was not good, right? Being candid with the people that I worked with and acknowledging that, like, hey, I am drowning right now. Uh, Overall, spirits are good, not in the best place because I'm not liking having to get to the computer at 5:30 in the morning and go till 7:38. And then also in general, the thing that became really valuable for me was, frankly, without getting like too like legit therapy here, just sort of explore some of my more compulsive tendencies, which have broadly brought me a lot of professional and financial success. But I think I'm now really getting curious around, okay, what is the cost? Because I have a wife that's incredibly supportive and permissive. I have a lot of people that I work with that I keep myself in a pretty good place. They tend to benefit from my at times very manic energy, and it's just at this point in my life, I don't want to say like I'm done. I want to keep growing, but like we've built some things now. We've built some things. I'm not saying I'm like, oh, now I'm going to really like lay back and take the foot off the gas and just coast. Not that at all. But at a certain point, I do think you really do have to start enjoying the fruits of what you've done and not be working all the time. To say nothing of the fact, as
Mhm.
we get older, your physiological energies do start to change. You don't have all the gas that you did. So, anyway, so that is, I think, a fair explanation of that time period. And I'm sure we can tease apart some things that listeners could potentially consider doing or applying. But yeah, curious if you have any follow up questions or anything else you'd like to emphasize about that tale of woe and challenges from the
Yeah.
fall.
Yeah. Well, listen, I appreciate you sharing it for sure because I think it's great for our listeners to hear that someone who's even capable of creating a course on time management is also capable of being bad at time management sometimes. And not that you were, bad at organizing yourself, right? It's just what you wanted for your life was suddenly got to the place where it was mismatched with the commitments you had made,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
like that's gonna happen. That's gonna happen. Life is always in seasons, and you just found yourself in a season where you were drowning in the
Yeah.
commitments you had made. And so, I guess before we get to solutions, which we absolutely will, I would love to just talk a little bit about like what were some of those like early warning signs for you that like the tide was rising? Like what were the things that you were experiencing just either mentally, psychologically, that were telling you like, oh crap, this is getting to a place where I have to switch course.
Yeah, I think, for me, one of the things we really emphasize in the time management course, which overall is a thing I usually do very well, even when I really have a very full plate, is I more often than not win the games, right? So we
Hmm.
always say you want to make games you can win, which is basically another way of saying you want to have a reasonable enough set of goals for a given day and a week and a month that it's some challenge to do, because it's not fun if it's not hard at all, but also is in the realm of possible. And for me, I think it was when I started seeing that, okay, I'm actually not getting to all of the things. Now, to my credit,
Yes.
the time management skills still were worthwhile because I was able to clearly
Yeah.
communicate with other people. So one thing that is a skill set that really served me well in that moment and probably did a lot to help preserve the relationships was to always know what I was trying to get done, so I could communicate to
Hmm.
people if timelines need to change, or also like asking for help, which I think at this point in my life I tend to do a better job of. So that was one piece, and I think certainly like another piece was just my experience of work. It just wasn't as fun. And I think the other thing that I
Hmm.
didn't really have any way of quite clocking was the combination of being back in New York City, the extra demands on my time of social opportunities, which was part of why I moved back, but I was now having to turn down everything and not even really see my friends that much. My wife being back at work a full time was also,
Yep.
in retrospect, I'm like, of course, you idiot. Like, of course, it's an issue, but I don't think I understood, whoa, the Broadway schedule is literally opposite to my schedule.
Yeah.
So if I'm crashing at the end of the day and I only see her 2 nights a week or in mornings, and I have to work a lot of those times, well, that's not going to work for me because my wife, that's the foundation, that's the bedrock of my life. So if she and I are not feeling connected, I think she and I are both very reasonable people. I think it's part of why I think marriage works unusually well. I think we have, we have, I would say, realistic expectations of what anybody can expect from another person. I think that's an important thing to a
Yeah.
successful marriage. It's, I think, not always grasped, but nonetheless, even with that, I think it was clear we're like, okay, we really don't have the time to be with each other. And of course, in final, the kid thing definitely is a thing too, right? Because any parent
Yeah.
listening, here's like the epitome of being a parent, right? When you're with your kid, you're feeling like a little stressed about some work stuff you maybe could be doing, or maybe feel like you should doing, maybe even like really want to do. And then if you're with work doing work stuff, you're feeling crappy because you kind of want to be with your kid, right? So, I think
Yeah.
there's an art there. I don't know that there's a yeah, I don't think there's like a right or wrong there. I think you have to get a sort of values conversations, and I certainly don't mean to make it sound like I'm a martyr because I want to be very clear. Like I'm not complaining about my life. Like she and I are very fortunate. We have a lot of resources. Like this is all a very very solvable thing. But I
Yeah.
imagine there's people listening that can resonate with a lot of this, and frankly are maybe not in
Yes.
a situation to make some of the choices I've been able to use those resources to
Yeah.
opt out of a lot of things. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
but I would say if you're
Well, I
feeling
think
any
that
of these things or this is resonating, that's a sign that there's maybe some things
that's it.
to explore.
And I think I hear echoes of those early warning signs almost every day talking to our Unicorn Society members,
Mm,
right? And the two things that you said that I hear almost every day is like, I'm just not having fun. Like work is at the point now where like I'm not enjoying it. I maybe even
yeah.
resenting it or not looking forward to going in. Like that happens a lot. And then the other
Yeah.
one you mentioned, which is just have more on your plate than you could really accomplish even at your high level of proficiency and effectiveness. And I hear that all the time from Unicorn City members that like I just that sense of I'm always behind. I'll say, cool,
Hmm.
what are you behind? Like, what do you mean by I'm behind? And they'll say, like, I just have more than I can do. And I'll say, okay, well, how do we change that? Right? Because you've set up a game here that you can't win, right? You
Right.
set expectations for yourself that you can't reach. So we have
Yeah.
to change the game. Right? It's not always a matter of just getting more effective. That matters to a point, but at some point, the rules just have to change if you're going to be successful. Because if you've gone months and months and months of never being able to check off your to-do list in a day, you have the wrong fucking to-do list.
Right. Right.
Right? And so there has to be some conversation about the system you're using to set expectations for yourself. And that's exactly what you described. So let's switch to solutions a little bit. So you already started sharing a few, which is like share with people around you that things are not looking great, that I might need to extend deadlines. I might need some more leniency here, more time here. Aside from that, what else did you do that helped you turn a corner?
Yeah. I mean, I think certainly after admitting the problem, which of course is always the first step, I think in addition to letting people know that I was going through a little bit of a challenging time and to ask for a little bit of grace and patience with me, I started making moves to get things off my plate. So the
Yeah.
dumb, obvious thing that I did is the same thing we tell everyone to do, which I go back to again and again. Admittedly, it's usually not quite this of a mission critical requirement, but is literally just make a list of what are my tasks, what are my responsibilities, how long am I spending per week, how valuable is that for the businesses, how much do those tasks or even management relationships, how much are they filling me up or how much are they challenging me, and then just come in with a hacksaw, right? Because here's another I think
Mhm.
thing to be understood, which is true that I think sometimes it feels like more of a barrier than it should. You do need some time, right? So I think one thing that is true is like once you've dug this kind of hole for yourself, in many situations, you're not getting out of that by the end of the week. Like you're going to need some time. If you're going to delegate more to other people, you have to train them. There might be a period where you just have to hit the gas harder to get out of it. And certainly that was the case for me. But I think just knowing you have a plan and knowing there's a light at the end of the tunnel can help because I got to tell you now, like my calendar's like, oh, I can breathe. I look at my calendar. It's like, great, I have time where I don't feel like I have to sprint all day long every day. I'm not like Indiana Jones with a boulder coming at me as I'm sprinting to the end of the day, um, which means that I just like when I'm doing a lot better. And I would probably argue my work is probably a lot better too, particularly because for those of you that have a lot of creative things, which by the way, is anybody listening does anything that's marketing related, there's a certain artistic element to that. And if you're just grinding through it, holy cow, right? Or if you're like training down sessions and this is the energy you're bringing in your
Mm,
clients, like it's not going to go great, right? So, I think identifying what you're doing, identifying where you can make changes, and then making the plan for making those changes, which in for some of you in some cases, and I think it's another barrier sometimes, might mean you might need to make a few less dollars for a little bit. So the reason why we're a fan of like making sufficient money with your gym, making enough profit, because I know this is an issue. Some of you probably feel you're like, oh, I cannot make a dollar less than I'm currently making. Well, that's going to present an issue, right? You not only need
yeah,
time capacity, at a certain point, you do need a little bit of money capacity. And in some situations, I'm not saying literally this, but maybe I'm not saying literally this. Some situations, you'd be better just putting on your credit card, just going into debt for 2 to 3 months and just digging yourself out so you have more time to do the things that are going to drive the business forward, and so that you're not completely losing your mind working untenable amount of hours. Because most of
yeah,
you, and admittedly, like my situation is a little bit different. So I not only had more resources, but I had to get like higher level things off my plate. It wasn't like most of my day was administrative stuff. A lot of you listening, it's things that you really don't need to be doing, and you could replace for a minimal hourly amount for a competent person that's
yeah.
either someone who's already on your team, could be a fractional person you work with online. There's never been a better time to find people online and take things off your plate, or in some cases, it's even bartering with your clients.
Yeah, I think that's it's so true, Fisher. That I think your solution will have a lot to do with what resources you have access to, time resources, money resources. In some cases, patience resources, uh, right? How well organized your SOPs and systems are. But listen, when we talk about doing a kind of a time audit like this and thinking about what you got off your plate, the thing I've always found very helpful, which we talk about in this course that Mark's going to be doing, are the 4 Ds: the do, delete, delegate, and delay. And I
Yes.
think thinking through your tasks and using those 4 Ds has always been helpful to me. Because the thing that people often forget is like, you can just stop doing some things. You can
Yes.
just stop. You can just delete the task. So often we get so precious that, oh, we've been doing it this way for so long, or I always do this. Well, okay, well, what would happen if you just stopped? Like that's
Yeah.
an option to consider. And in many cases, I talk to people all the time who are just shocked that they stopped doing a thing and no one noticed. Right,
Oh yeah.
right, or they delayed it. They went from a thing that they do every week, they just kicked it down the road. Now they just do it once a month.
Yeah. I mean,
Or
it's
they delegated to someone and it was they got someone to do it for minimum wage, right? And so like I think there are solutions to clearing your plate, and sometimes the biggest barrier is people's discomfort with change that you have to
yeah.
get over if you're going to dig yourself out of a hole like that. And so yeah, I think it's a great story. I mean, to wrap it up, Fisher, any other kind of words of wisdom on this topic as we bring things to a close?
Mm, I mean, certainly, I do think, like, at the risk of being obnoxious with the plugging, I do think it's very much worth considering going and checking out this course if this is something that you think is a
Yeah,
pain point for you. Um,
yeah,
because I do think another thing to understand is if you're never having periods where you're feeling you're grinding it too hard, that too is maybe something to explore. And listen, again, we kind of get in these values conversations, right? So I have a lot of ambition for what I want to do professionally, the way I want to impact the world before I die. Frankly, even ambitious for the type of husband and father I want to be. And that's going to mean there's going to be some moments where I'm flying a little too close to the sun. And I think I'm okay with that. So I'm not
yeah,
suggesting, for me, the preferred path is not. I'm always going to make sure I'm majorly undershooting, so I know I can get it. And I never
mm,
run into this issue of pushing a little too hard. But conversely, on the other hand, if you're always pushing it too hard, if you are going months, years at times, feeling the way I felt for a couple of months over the fall, that too is really worth exploring, right? And
yeah,
not only because, even if it's not about your own experience, and I would argue you are worth it, like your own experience is enough of a reason to consider changing that, but because one, you're not going to get the results you're looking to get with your gym, and then two, you're not going to have the impact you want to make on the people you love, right? Because again, as the leader, your
yeah.
behavior is contagious. Your emotions are leaky. So, put on the old oxygen mask first, and I think if you're looking for very tactical ways to do that, perhaps you'll consider taking our course.
Yeah, we'll leave it there, my friend. I know you and I can talk about this topic all day, but I'll leave everyone with the same thought, which is go take time management for gym owners. It's 50% off till February 9th. The link is down below, and we promise you it'll help you level up your ability to fulfill your life purpose and mission with less time and less stress. So go fucking do it. Thanks for a great conversation, Fisher. I'll see you on the next one.
Bye.